contradict you about listening.
By the way, when I sat next to her, she mentioned that.
We're off the, I like to think I'm a far better listener today than I was back then, and can always do more. But I try to be an active listener and then an active questioner for anybody who's joined me in a meeting at the Pentagon. But it really is important to listen to what your people are saying and what their views are. I'm reading a book right now called The Outpost, written by Jake Tapper. It recounts the history of the Army at a particular outpost in Afghanistan. And when you read the stories about the young sergeants and officers who were trying to tell their chain of command that things weren't right or we should do this, you can see so many cases where the chain of command just simply wasn't listening. And so I think it's very important to listen and listen actively. The other thing that I've kind of emphasized, and it seems counterintuitive, but when I took over as Secretary of the Army, I said to my folks, I do not believe in consensus. Consensus to me drives suboptimal solutions. What I want to do is when you guys send me courses of action or recommendations, I want to hear the minority view. And I will tell you, there's so many times where it was just one person who spoke up in a room and said, hey, how about this? A voice that was maybe muffled in all the other iterations. And it turned to be the best decision, the best idea put forward. So I try and listen. I try and find those people, the iconoclasts, the minorities, if you will, minority voice who isn't being heard, and hear them out to make sure that we hear all the great ideas that are coming across the organization.
Getting diverse views, super, super important. Can you reflect a little bit on how to think about fostering the veteran community? How can the private sector broadly play a bigger role in supporting that?
Yeah, it's tough. I think both sides of the equation have to seek each other out and work at it a little. I left active duty in 1996, as I was just telling some of your vets here. I didn't know how to write a resume, let alone how to highlight my skills on the resume or what they really were. And yet, in looking back, I recognize now, as I've had to hire hundreds of folks, that it's those skills that regard to leadership and managing your time and thinking and reacting under pressure, all those things that are really integral that you can't necessarily always train, or it takes many years to train, that employers really value. It's the commitment, it's the loyalty, the dedication, the get-to-itiveness, the grit, which is so critical in terms of carrying through with whatever your business strategy is. So I think the more outreach that companies can do to the veteran community, to find them, to help bring them along, I think usually they start out probably a little bit slower up front, but when they get their stride, they really take off. And that's one of the things we try to do in the Army is, as we knew that folks were leaving the service, how do we prepare them? How do we help them write a resume? How do we help them highlight their skills and then transition their military skills into applicable civilian skills? And that is one thing they have to work
on. Well, the role of the private sector in that, leads me to just ask you about your experience, because you've been in and out of the private sector. You worked at Raytheon, most recently, in the private sector. And I'd be curious, as you went into the private sector and made that transition, what skills that you had, as someone who had served, you thought really got amplified. And then the second question would be, when you've now come and taken private sector experience and have gone to the Pentagon, how did the private sector experience, translate the other way?
Sure. I think on the first one, in terms of going from the military to the private sector, what I found was, the leadership skills are one. Because by that time I was, 32 years old. I'd commanded units as big as 300 people. So I brought in a lot of leadership skills that many of my peers didn't have. And so my ability to take a team and organize them and develop a strategy was really valued by the private sector, whether I was working with, I worked with nonprofits, I worked with associations, think tanks, and eventually in the defense industry. And then the flip side was true as well. When I went from the private sector into the government sector, what I brought is just a keen sense of what it means to wring efficiency out of an organization and break it down to its core tasks, so you knew that everybody was focused what was core to the mission. And that's something the government wrestles with. We tend to build things up and never look hard at what was the purpose and what was the task, and shedding inefficiency, because as you all know, in the private sector, inefficiency will kill a company, it will kill an organization, because you can never
pressure is enormous.
The pressure is enormous. You can't make your profit, you can't make your marks. And the duty we have in the public sector of DoD is to deliver to you all as taxpayers, and you should expect this. You should demand it, that we deliver you a highly effective organization that delivers national security, keeps you safe and secure and your families, on a day-to-day basis. And more often than not, I shouldn't say more often, but too often, we're not as efficient as we should be, and we're getting better. And it's one of the things that I've put out, set forth as one of my top 3 priorities, is to reform the Department of Defense to make sure that we're freeing up time, money, and manpower to put into those things that the country needs most. And that's my commitment to all of you, to all taxpayers, to all the American people, to make sure we get that done right.
An important charge, not an easy charge, but glad to hear that.
It's only a $738 billion budget.
It's a big budget. It's different than our small little budget here at Goldman Sachs.
I'll swap paychecks with you, though.
Touche. So I want to shift to leadership, and just talk a little bit about leadership. And just thinking about, you're sworn in as the Secretary of Defense after serving as both Secretary and Acting Secretary of the Army. But you were a West Point graduate. In the path of West Point graduate to Secretary of Defense, it's really unimaginable, in some ways. I mean, maybe imaginable, but unimaginable in some ways. But as you get to this position, you're looking back on your experience in combat. You're looking back on the experience of so many that serve under you. How did your experience in combat shape the way you lead today from the top of the Defense Department?
Sure, that's a great question, and it is one of those ascendancies, if you will, or jobs where you just got to pinch yourself every day and realize it's hard to believe that 30-some years ago I was a cadet at West Point, and here I am now in charge of, not due to anything I've done, but the greatest military on earth, and it's really overwhelming. But it really, I look at all my jobs, but the one in particular, whether it's my time in my Army, in the Army, and particularly my time in combat in the Army, where I have to think whether it was the raid we recently done against to go after the head of ISIS, al-Baghdadi, or Operation Sincere, where I could put myself on the ground and ask myself, if I were a young company commander leading my soldiers, and this order came all the way down to me, would I know how to implement it? Would I know what it means? Do I understand what we say is commander's intent? What are we really trying to accomplish? What does the boss want us to do? And I think about that hard as we issue orders and we give instructions, and as I speak to the press. I mean, the military has its own language too. And so part of my challenge is translating what's out there in the civilian sphere into what the military sphere is. And again, make sure that all of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines can understand it in a way that makes sure that they are successful and they can accomplish their mission and bring everyone home safely.
So you've served under a number of commanders in chief, and every leader has their own decision-making process, whether it's in the situation room, whether it's on the battlefield. Talk about, as you've worked with this commander-in-chief, the context of our defense, the decision-making process, and how's it different, same?
Sure. No, look, they're all different. I've had probably 24 bosses in my time, and many of you have as well. And I think that a key to success, not the key, but a key to success is understanding how your boss thinks and works and acts, and then making sure you know how to deliver to them the best advice and recommendations and action that you possibly can. And so one of the challenges is the sooner you can figure that out, the better. And look, the president is a big thinker, and he asks some really good questions. And I've had any number of meetings with him where he's moving around a lot, asking a lot of questions, taking it in. Is certainly open to hearing contrary views and then pushing back on that. And I like that give and take. I think you get a lot of good stuff out on the table from a lot of different advisors, and I think that's how, in any organization, you serve your boss best, by making sure that you're forthright, that you're offering your best advice for him, understanding what his goals are, intent, or her goals and intent, whatever the case may be, and delivering value. And for me, that's how one of the ways I think I've been successful over time is just really understanding what my boss's priorities are, and then how best do I go to execute them? How do I implement them in a way that provides, again, optimal value, a high return on investment, and in the case of the country, delivers well for the country also.
Right. It's an important skill in any position. In any position. So you mentioned al-Baghdadi, and I wanted to talk a little bit about ISIS and some of your comments about that. But before I do that, it was a super important U.S. military operation, obviously. Bring us inside the situation room and talk about what it feels like to be the Secretary of Defense, and you're executing on something as important as this personally. What did it feel like to be in the situation room and witness that?
Sure. Well, like I said, I had enough time in the Army to have a good understanding of what they were doing and how they were doing it. And so I'd obviously been briefed. The commander had brought the plans up to me, and I had reviewed them and blessed off on them. And so I had a fairly good understanding of what the timeline would be. But to be there and to know that we were hitting certain key milestones, whether it was the aircraft moving at certain thresholds across the terrain, or maneuvering through enemy air defenses or air defenses that were on the ground. Each one of those moments is, caught with in terms of its own suspense. And then, of course, once the soldiers hit the ground and we're moving on to the objective, all those are really important moments where, anything can go wrong. But we have the best military in the world, and quite capable, and we give them the time, the money, and effort to train, and they perform, in my view, flawlessly. But look, I'm old enough also to remember the raid on Iran in the late 70s. We tried to rescue the hostages, U.S. hostages, and that went terribly bad. It's actually the single event that led to the creation of all of our special operations forces. So that's always in the back of your mind. But look, they did a spectacular job. They made us all proud, and thank goodness we have men and women out there who are willing to put their lives on the line to do things like that to help us take out the world's foremost terrorist leader. This guy is not just a terrorist leader. I mean, he brutally raped and eventually murdered a young American NGO for, I think, nearly a year. He personally beheaded folks. I mean, he was a murderer in every sense of the day. We had blood on his own hands, American blood. So, anyways, taking bad people out like that is, thank goodness we have people who are willing to serve and protect us.
Make that happen. You called it a devastating blow to ISIS, and I just thought it would be interesting to get some of your comments on kind of our future strategy against ISIS and how, what does this particular death mean to the organization? But more importantly, how do you see, the ongoing battle that certainly we have to continue to fight?
Well, I think time will tell what his death means to the organization. My crystal ball doesn't work that well, but it seems to me that whenever you take out the one person who was not just the leader of ISIS, but the founder and the inspirational leader, and the person who built the physical caliphate that spanned, multiple countries, you're taking out a pretty powerful person. And if you believe, like I do, that leadership matters, then I think that's why I said it will have a devastating effect on them. Now we'll see how this new guy turns out. We'll see how long it takes him or her to reach a certain level. But as at this point, we've knocked them back on their heels pretty hard. And our commitment is to stay on top of them, because the last thing we want is for them to bring that terrorism to any of our allies and partners, and certainly we don't want to bring it home. And both New York is more than anybody experienced 9/11 in a devastating way, with 3,000 Americans killed, innocent Americans killed at the hands of terrorists. Yep.
I want to ask about Iran a little bit. And just, we've certainly seen more aggressive tactics from Iran recently. We've sent some more troops to Saudi Arabia in the context of thinking about that threat. From a military perspective, how do you think about the threat of Iran to the region, but also to the world more broadly?
Well, Iran has been a threat to the region for 40 years, since the revolution in 1979. I mean, their support of terrorism throughout the region spans all the way from Pakistan and Afghanistan all the way west into Africa. And the support of any number of terrorist groups out there who've been, causing mayhem across the region is well known. And on top of that, they were pursuing long-range missiles and a nuclear program. And they just have a different view of the world, where they want to be the regional hegemon. Yep. And their values are completely inconsistent with what any of us or our partners would subscribe to, if you will. So, look, they're a big threat, but I don't think, we're not looking for a war with Iran. What we want really is for them to get back to the negotiating table and sit down with us and to strike a new deal, a new nuclear and missile deal that'll give us far better assurance that at the end of the day, they won't be able to pursue nuclear weapons and long-range missiles and all those things they need to threaten stability and peace in the Middle East, if not beyond their borders as well.
Reasonable we can get there, in your view, or hard slog?
Well, the revolution they launched in 1979 has sustained itself a lot longer than I ever thought it would.
Anybody thought, yeah.
And again, I think their values are so antithetical to much of what we believe in that I'm not sure. But the maximum pressure campaign is on. We have a lot of partners and countries out there that are supporting us. We're using the military not to provoke a confrontation, but to actually deter one and to convince them that that door is closed. Let's open the door to diplomacy and walk through that door, because, as the president said, he's willing anytime, anywhere to sit down with them and talk about what a new agreement would look like. And look, If you really don't want to pursue nuclear weapons or to pursue, ICBMs, then it's an easy deal to make. But that should tell you something about their position if they're unwilling to make such an agreement.
Sure, no, it's clear. Let's turn to China. At the moment, I'd say the U.S. relationship with China is scrutinized, more than any other. Everywhere I go, I was just in Europe last week, in Germany, and everybody wants to talk about the U.S.-China relationship. Certainly, the trade discussion gets a lot of attention, but I'd be interested in your perspective on some of the economic policies and trade, but more importantly, national security issues, and how you think that's all evolving.
Well, let me start from the big picture. The national defense strategy of the United States says that we are now in an era of great power competition, and that our long-term strategic competitor, the number one, is China, followed by Russia, and that we need to prepare for that competition, and also at the same time prepare for what we call high-intensity conflict, warfare that you haven't seen since World War II. And that is based on years of assessments, both public and private, using intelligence and open source material. It's clear to us that China has been on this path for quite some time. And I've studied China. I've served on a commission that studied China. And so I'm well aware of what they're up to. And they have taken a holistic approach toward competing with the United States, that by the year 2049, they want to dominate Asia. And they're very clear about that. And at the same token, they identify us as their number one adversary. We identify them as our number one competitor. We are their adversary. So everything they are doing right now is aimed toward pushing us out of the region. And if you travel around the Pacific, the Indo-Pacific, as we say it, many are very concerned about what's happening. And you see coercion and compellence happening in a very private and in some ways public way by China exercising its influence over the smaller countries, and really compelling them to their wishes and ways. So I applaud the president for standing up to them from economic footing. I was working in the Senate in 2001 when we brought China, the United States did, into the World Trade Organization. There were two competing arguments at the time. One argument said that if we allow them in, they will use the benefits of free trade and an open system to buy the means to eventually build a strong and capable military, and they will try and dominate us. And the prevailing theory was, no, if we let them into the World Trade Organization and all these other institutions, then they will liberalize, and over time, they will adopt capitalism, they will adopt democracy, and everything will be okay. And they're both credible theories, but I'll tell you which one is winning right now. It's not the latter. I mean, President Xi has taken his country in a vastly different direction over the last few years in terms of the crackdown on human rights. Look at what they've done to the Uyghur population in Western China, repression of journalists, repression of judges and lawyers. Look at what's happening in Hong Kong. I just think China's heading in the wrong direction. And so what we've been saying is we need to compete with them, and we need to try and pull them back into the international world order, the liberal world order that we established in the wake of World War II, and try and get them on that path, because we don't want a conflict with China. What we want to do is we want to see them develop into a normal country, and that's one of the things we're trying to do these days from our side from our perspective is to make sure we're ready for the worst, but hope for the best and work for the best.
Yeah, I mean, it really was a 40-year foreign policy initiative to invite them in and assume they'd move in our direction, and there's very little evidence, today where we sit. When Belt and Road obviously, speaks to this idea of them really controlling the region and expanding. I assume, your feeling is if as we move in that direction and have more economic control around the region, it really has an impact on national security for the world.
Yeah, I mean, Belt and Road in many ways is a debt trap for so many countries. So it's the way in. You're offered money and access, and you get yourself in a debt trap. And next thing you know, China very strategically is owning ports all the way from Southeast Asia all the way around south of India. You work your way around the Indian Ocean into Africa, Eastern Africa, Western Africa. Very strategic plan of what they're executing. Access to certain minerals and resources in Africa. I mean, the Chinese, give them some credit, they have a very strategic, complex plan to dominate in certain fields. And by the way, if you studied them, there's any number of industries they want to dominate, from green technology all the way down to airplane building. So So they have a game plan and they're executing it. And for if you're a country that has debt problems or you're looking for development assistance, it's very attractive, but it's a short-term inducement that you'll end up risk losing your sovereignty if you're not careful. And we've tried to tell that story. I've met several times with my European allies in the context of NATO, warning about the importance of making sure we develop 5G technologies in a way that preserves our ability to interact as partners and allies, and that's a major concern for us and Europe.
Yeah. So I want to touch on cyber for a minute, because this is obviously a very, very significant issue and something you've commented on. How are we evolving to confront the new dynamics of modern cyber warfare, from a national security perspective?
And we are probably slow out of the gate, but at this point in time, in terms of protecting our democracy, which is job number one, is making sure our free and fair elections are untainted by foreign influence. I think we're in far better shape. The 2018 elections were a good example. The United States, in a whole of government approach led by the Department of Homeland Security, but which the DoD Cyber Command puts a lot of resources into it. We've really done a different job, and the president has given us the authority to do that as well. So, in terms of protecting our elections, I think we're in far better shape than we were in 2016. And we'll be in really good shape in 2020 and next year. In terms of theft of intellectual property, I still think we're pretty far behind. And if you're a big company that has the capital to protect your systems, you're probably doing a decent job. But if you're a small company, medium-sized small company, it's much more difficult because you don't have the means. And more often than not, I found that's where most of the innovation is taking place. And entrepreneurialism is in those smaller companies that, again, can't protect their systems or networks like the bigger ones can. So the cyber threat is still ongoing. I've been calling it the greatest theft of intellectual property in history. And then on top of that, you still have influence happening through our various mediums out there. China's misbehaving, North Korea, Russia, other countries out there.
How do you, so if we make progress in some way at a high level on this last issue, how do you enforce? How do you know that we really have made progress and it's enforced? It's complicated stuff to really police.
Well, there's so much I can't get into. I mean, things that we can do that we can shut down and curtail. But a lot of it involves just awareness that they're out there, malign actors are out there on the internet trying to shape and influence our views on various things. And I think it just takes curious, smart people to kind of think through and making sure you're getting a diverse range of information and go to a lot of the traditional sources are good sources of information. So,
yeah. So I want to shift a little bit to running the Pentagon. And I start by saying I wake up in the morning.
If you can find the person who runs the Pentagon, let me know.
Okay, well, I wake up in the morning and I know I'm responsible for 37,000 employees, and it seems awfully daunting and like a very big job. The Pentagon is the nation's largest employer. So you talked a little bit about some opportunities before when we were talking earlier in terms of efficiency, et cetera. What are the challenges and what are the opportunities that you see in building and managing an organization like that? It's such an institution, so large and so significant, but we're also entering a new century. The world's a little bit different. We're modernizing. Talk a little bit about how you think about that today, but also how it will evolve as we move forward.
Look, if you think about it, it can be overwhelming. It's 2.3 million people. We're probably in every country in the world, nearly every country in the world. At any one time, we have nearly 200,000 service members in over 150 countries around the world, and we have commands that span every part of the globe. But here's the strength that we have that I think is really special. It's unique, and that is we have a very solid culture. And the culture, to me, is the most important thing. You get a culture that's committed to defense of the nation. So we share a common direction in terms of protecting the country. We've all sworn an oath to do that. You find that everybody is focused on that sole mission. With it comes a code of conduct that the services bring with them about how they will behave as professional warriors. That helps them focus as well. And even our civilians, we have a fantastic cadre, hundreds of thousands of DoD civilians out there around the world who also share that same ethos. And so that's what really gives me a lot of comfort. Plus, we put a lot of money into training, into recruiting, training, and educating, and then continuing the development of great leaders, men and women who committed themselves again to those missions. So when you got a cadre of folks like that working for you, it gives you a lot of confidence that folks are doing the right thing here. And every night when I go to bed, people say, "What keeps you up at night?" I say, "I sleep pretty well because I got leaders like this out there, and we're all protected by the greatest military in the world." So it gives me a lot of confidence.
That's great. That's great. You talked about culture. Culture is super important in any organization. We think a lot about it. I think a lot about it, here with our organization. But one of the things that I'm spending a lot of time focusing on, because I think it really matters, is diversity across our workforce. And so I wanted to ask you, how do you think about diversity at the Department of Defense, and how are you making sure, it's very reflective of the population that you represent?
Sure. No, I think about diversity in a number of different ways. It's not just diversity in terms of ethnicity and religion and things like that, because that's all very important. But I also have to think of diversity in terms of an Army and the Navy and an Air Force, Marines, air power, land power, sea power, undersea power, space, cyberspace, to make sure I'm tapping all those great minds and great ideas out there to make sure I have a balanced set of capabilities and capacity to make sure I can continue to defend our great nation. So I think about it in those ways. And that's just the uniform side. Then we get, again, hundreds of thousands of great DoD civilians out there who bring a lot of their own personal experiences. Many coming from the private sector, sure, coming in, or who were in, went out and came back in. So there's a whole broader set of diversity out there that I try to think about, so I just don't get a narrow view of what's happening. And even in my own office, I try and have diversity among the people working for me, because it's very important to have those different views. It's that one gem out there and one person who brings a different experience in that may have the answer. And if not the answer, maybe it's that missing piece in the jigsaw puzzle.
Talked about that at the beginning, and being able to put that in. So just to wrap up, a couple of quick lightning questions.
Okay.
Last great book you read.
Well, I told you right now I'm reading the Outpost by Jacob.
Don't talk to me about any charm business.
You got me will shoot you fucking ass right now.
I was supposed to be causing you for using a stupid charm on me.
I'm calling police. I will lock you out.
Lock me up.
You got that guy and use
it. Stop using the charm.
Let me come closer.
All right.
Let me come closer.
Stop closer. I don't mean to cause you. Stop using the charm. That's your charm. Don't come to me.
President, stop using that credit card.
Stop using the charm.
You know you go to jail right now.
Yeah, charm that thing you talking about. Stop using charm. Yesterday, you charm on me. Because behind this house there, the charm. Maybe the stupid hour closet behind the house there. Lisa was standing up behind the that charm.
You go to jail.
Shut up.
Shut your mouth.
You shut up. You shut up. You know your fucking ass on using charm. You know everything that you pressing me.
Shut up.
You pressing me.
Let me press you.
I was by a cow. Your asshole. Yesterday, Lisa go use the charm on me. Yesterday.
If you say you crazy,
I left the glasses there. Lisa was doing all of this. Lisa was doing all of this. Also charm. I remember everything that Lisa did. That charm. The credit card, that charm.
Okay.
You, that charm.
No.
Stop it.
I'm just letting you know that I'm going to the police right now.
Stop it.
And next time.
Stop it, charm it. All right.
I'll just let you know that you're going to the police right now.
You think we're stupid? We don't know that you're using the fucking asshole charm every fucking day.
Charm, you just stop paying the people money like that, and I'm money that bad.
That's no fucking money, that charm money. All right, y'all using charm.
Okay. I can't call the police on you. I don't care.
You better leave me alone if I do something to you. Stop the charming. You better shut up. You better shut up. You know that you better using the charm on me and the charm making me flow. Stop the charming.
You're going to jail straight from Milwaukee.
You better stop the charm.
All right. You will get straight Milwaukee.
You can lie. Y'all using the charm. Stop the charming. Now your stupid ass. You're using the charm.
You crazy.
All that you're talking about a charm. Don't come to me for any stupid ass one thing. Now your charm you using it. You don't use it. Can't do it. Can't do it. Your ass is an that's why you're using charm. Can't do it.
Come here. Let me call the 911.
Come here. Come here. Charm.
Come here.
You're using a fucking asshole charm. You stupid man. You gotta get back. You gotta stop using charm on me. Sorry. I can't do anything. Shut the fuck up. You're using a fucking charm.
Fucking asshole.
You stupid asshole.
You my stupid ass, damn fucking dog.
You think we're stupid?
You stupid.
Ever since we got back, we came back, y'all still using the fucking charm on people.
Chum. You too stupid.
Everything you don't talk to me for anything for how long you hear anything. I don't hear nothing.
Come here.
All
Come
right.
do it. Today you gotta get in the walking king my name.
That thing is social charm you talking about. All the credit card, that charm. Everything that charm, we not doing anything no more yet. Social charm. All right. I don't hear anything. Don't come to me for any fucking credit card, man. I don't hear you. I will spoil your car.
You go to jail. Your time to go to jail is too long. Not to put hang on you.
The stupid credit card you talking about, that's also charm. Shut up! Shut the fuck up!
You trying to tell the asshole, you stupid monkey.
You stupid that you want using charm on somebody. Why you wasting my time? You're wasting somebody's time. You wasting my time. You better shut up. You know that Lisa taking part in the charm. You know how many times she done that? But you don't want to say. You stupid. You start using charm on me. All right.
Finally, this is brief for the testimony.
Okay. When your car spoil, then I tell you just serious about it. You want to be talking that stupid now or your mom. When your car spoil, then I tell you will know that I'm serious. You will not stop it. Yeah, yesterday you use the charm on somebody. Then the stupid credit card you talk about, that all part of the fucking charm they are on. You're all the fucking credit card you're giving for that's not a charm. That is buying all the charm that you're the food. I know you stupid or something.
Military had the best of everything. The last administration even thought we could cut our defense budget by hundreds of billions of dollars while fighting two wars, and everything would turn out fine. We found out that was not the case. While the cut in our defense budget was taking place, it was actually between the 2 years of 2010 and 2015, the cuts actually were a 25%. And according to The Economist, this is a document that Senator Wicker first called our attention to, and we checked out afterwards about it to be everything that was in this article to be accurate. That while we were cutting ours 25%, the Chinese were increasing their military spending in that same time frame by 83%. Today we find ourselves in a new and different moment for America's security. The American people can no longer take America's military superiority for
Yeah, pretend. That's also pretending thing you're talking about. You're still up to now. You're still you know how many months man? Since we came back November, December, January, February, March, April. That almost 6 months. You're still using the charm on people. You better shut up out there. You know the stupid asshole woman. The woman participating in the charm business. She go bring her car over there. That was the first time she participated. The second time she came to the door behind the house there. The third time again, that was yesterday when she participated again. The fourth time again, she was standing somewhere. She was standing around the house. Now the fourth time she participated in the charm. You think we're stupid? You better show her your money. Yeah, pretending I was spoil your car. All right, can't be doing it. That is stupid thing. Your stupidness. You on there.
In the first of this new.
You know that you're doing some kind of thing. Then you come in the media every day for all kind of shit, whole problem. I keep telling you to stop the thing. That the thing that causing all the problem here. Then you come in the media telling me say, I go use your credit card and you know that charm.
We want to avoid the CRs.
You better leave me alone. You better leave me alone. All right.
Said, quote,
if y'all want to do your charm, then you can go ahead and do your charm. But leave me alone.
In jeopardy. But this isn't only about money. We can't buy our way out of the competition with China and Russia. We need urgent change in.
You got to leave me alone.
And that requires hard choices about threat priorities.
You want to do your charm, you go ahead. Go ahead. Do all your charm business you want to do. Do all the charm. But leave me alone.
Who enjoys the trust and confidence of the president and who has the support of those entrusted with critical civilian leadership positions in the department.
All that thing you talking about, you coming yelling. Why you yelling at somebody for? Are you stupid or something? I know you think we're stupid. How you be using charm? You be using charm or something? Then you can't. You complaining about other things. The fucking asshole charm you use on somebody else. We complain about it. When somebody go to your credit card, then you can't complain. Then you turn around and go use the charm. You know how long you have been using the charm on somebody?
Secretary Esper, as we review your qualifications to serve as Secretary of Defense, I note that you have a wealth of experience in defense policy.
I know you just think somebody joking. Just keep doing it. You also see what happening here, Jenna.
In both the public and private sector. If confirmed,
keep doing it. Just keep doing it.
Should serve you well. It has been nearly 7 months since the
department. I ain't say you're stupid. I say you're stupid. I also see something happening here, Jenna. That be acting stupid.
Situation that under the Vacancies Act, Secretary Esper cannot serve as the acting Secretary of Defense now that he's been nominated for that position. Therefore, Secretary of the Navy Spencer is serving as the acting Secretary of Defense.
That stupidness you telling somebody, you know that you're using the charm on somebody. All that thing you talking that social charm distance. That social charm distance. How you manage to know somebody got card? That because they telling you everything. You go receive my mail from the box again. How you manage to know my mail was coming? I think that social charm business you talking about. I keep telling you the thing. I said stop the charm. Then you coming to me telling me about card. Y'all want to put somebody in trouble, yeah? You know that if you're doing that kind of thing, I can help you with something. Then I go get in trouble for nothing. You want to put me in trouble? Yeah, because we're trying to avoid the trouble, the problem. That's why you see I say now that they all your time they are feeling doing something to you. I keep telling you, I say y'all stop y'all stop the thing, the charm business. All that thing you're talking, you know that you know that you're doing, you're using the charm. Where you expecting to go to work crazy, and y'all know that up to now we still crazy. Up to now we still crazy. Then you keeping somebody crazy. Then you can't complaining about all kind of things in my ear. I keep telling y'all. I say y'all stop y'all stop the. I don't know what happened, but y'all stop the charm. When y'all post stop to the charm, then you can come talk to people about those kind of thing. Then it makes sense. But somebody, you can't make somebody crazy like this. Then the person will go to work. Then will be working. You can't make the person crazy. Then they be walking after other things. The thing that craziness. You can't make somebody crazy and they be doing this kind of thing. You just making people to just be yelling all over the place. Why they crazy? I keep telling y'all stop the thing. You think we're stupid? We don't. I told y'all, I said the way we managed to know how they think and work, that because when we went back to California, they brought back they were bringing back the memory. So when they brought back the memory, now we understand how the charm can work. Now we understand everything. Now they did the same thing in Nigeria. They go in Liberia, they go bring the memory back. That's how we managed to understand everything. I keep telling you, I say y'all stop. They think all that thing you're talking about, social charm business you own. Y'all included all the thing in the charm. Y'all know all about the credit card, all the thing that we ordering. Y'all know everything about it. Everything you see once you're doing charm business, anything that inside it, that means y'all know about it. That part of the charm. So if you come to talk to somebody about credit card, even the credit card you're talking about, you know about that card very well. You know that the card are part of the charm. You know that you're the one included in the charm. You know everything. That's why we're telling you, don't be coming to me for all kind of problem. Y'all don't be coming to me because you know about the card. You know it very well. That's why you came to somebody like that. That's why you keep pretending. How you manage to know about the card? The same people that they won't call you. All that thing you're doing, that's also pretend. Y'all post stop. If you're doing anything, post stop to the thing. Because the thing that causing even if we took the car, the thing that causing the problem. Don't count to me for any other thing. I keep telling you. You better just mind your business. You want to do your charm, do your charm. Don't count on me for anything. All the things that inside here that so crazy, you're gonna make somebody crazy. Everything in the room that craziness. Everything that in the room, the cell phone, everything that craziness. What kind of thing you can do here? Everything in the room here, so craziness. I don't know what kind of problem you can bring you can bring to somebody. Since somebody go tell you something, you don't come and talk to you don't come and talk to me. You go mind the people. Somebody go tell you, they go tell you, the white people go tell you something. The charm is the charm is just a weapon. You know what they think I do? They think go put mark on my skin here. You don't even know what happened. I said they think go put some kind of mark on my body here. The charm is not good. The charm that weapon. They say they think that's something that can even kill people. You're taking you're taking the thing too far. What kind of thing is this? What kind of thing you want from somebody that you using that kind of weapon on the person you know they think can kill people? I tell you, I told you, I say I come from all over the place. The people giving me hard time all over the place. They think that the charm is very dangerous weapon. Very dangerous weapon. Then you're just using the thing on people just to say that's some kind of good thing. They think the thing wasting people time. You know that you're doing the charm. The people that why the people in the credit one people they in contact that why they in contact with you. That's why we're telling you. I say once you're doing the charm business, it will be very difficult for us to do anything. Anything we try to do, they will put stop to it. Then you know that charm base, you're doing the charm. Then you keep coming to me pretending. That means say you that normal situation. Okay, I keep telling you, you've been doing the thing been going on for long. The children since we been in school, the children been disturbing people in the school there. But I don't know what kind of thing they do. We don't even know what they're talking about. We only go to school we go to class. When we go to the school chamber, we go straight to class. I don't even come around them, but that they want they can mind their business. The people then you're working with, I don't even know those people. I don't know any of Pauline friends. Then we don't know them. All the people you're working with, I don't know these people. I don't know them from anywhere. I never said anything to them. I never met with them before. I don't know them. You kind of thing that you got to stop the kind of thing. I don't know any of the people then you're talking about. I don't know them. I never met with them before. All the people, I don't know why you're bringing all the people then to somebody. I don't even know the people then you're bringing. We just see all kind of people just coming. I never met with these people before. I never told them anything. Where they coming from? Where the people coming from? Where the police woman come from? I never met with her before. I don't even know the woman. You see, you're just doing all kind of things. We don't even know the people then. I never met with them before. I never seen them before. Never talked to them about anything. We just see you're just using charm. You're just see somebody somewhere and just start using charm on the person. You're doing you're doing the kind of thing that why we see we talking like that, because I don't know any thing that going on here.
Just imagine the perfect small business that you could start. What would that look like?
I think we don't know anything about them. How you manage to go that? We haven't had the box. You know what happened? You even know what happened with Luca. You know what the people put on the foot? So charm business they were talking. The people, the day they said they part of the charm business, they were just bringing back your memory. They were doing. They go tell you, say, even though you call them and told them, say your card was stolen. They go tell you, say, they go tell you that. They go tell you, say, they will still allow you to use the card. And the time we were crazy, they said the same thing.
Just like oven, but when the morning comes, we not up.
Then they
don't care about you food when you're hungry. It's that one too. I got myself a sponsor. Let's see what I am.
Hey, you telling somebody all the time. That is the reason why you're giving somebody all the car. Just so they can be buying charm of it.
Mercy. These broke guys have lots of energy. Should I leave all this Gucci Prada? Now which young girl don't fear hunger? Dilemma, I'm in dilemma. Bad girl bunny in dilemma. Balewa, or Kelewa. Pinch me when you're fine. Let's see what I am. Oh my baby. Let's sweat run like crowd, but she not coming one. I don't remember me, Jerry, so they must have my kind of pulling for me, slow down. This is the idea, yeah, pulling for me, slow down. And what's the idea? I'm pulling for me, slow down. This is the idea, yeah, pulling for me, slow down. And what's the idea? Mercy.
Everything I don't like that. Very stubborn. When somebody telling you something, you be there.
Everybody make it bounce to the beat. Everybody make it bounce to the beat. Bounce to the beat. Everybody make it bounce to the beat. Everybody bounce to the beat. Everybody make it bounce to the beat. Pulling for me, slow down. This is the idea. Yeah, pulling for me, slow down. What's the idea? I'm pulling for me, slow down. This is the idea. Yeah.
Mercy. Not just disturbing me every all to the school, the children don't disturb me. You don't see that why we haven't been working. We just been sitting down like this.
Sorry, baby.
Hello? Yes.
Hey, baby, yes.
You know that what you are doing is wrong.
Wait.
If it wasn't for WTU, I would not have been able to go back for my master's degree. That's probably even now with working full time and having small kids.
You know the kind of thing you're doing is wrong. Yeah, they know that they wrong for all the things they're doing they wrong.
You the score like Messi, play like Aka, dribble like Picasso. You the like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Arsenal, Man U, Chelsea.
All the things they're doing, everything wrong.
Anything for you,
you look like you're doing something wrong, then you get yelling at somebody.
But if you break my heart, I go dead your father. You cannot be my son, you go call me your mother. Say if you break my heart, I go dead your father. You cannot be my son, you go call me your mother. I'll go fear, every time I go fear. I'll go fear,
White man can't tell you something.
me love you, me love you. Me love you, so me can't start to me, see the love I have for you, the love I have for you, the love I have for you. It's for nobody else but you. I say you don't say I get on board. Bobby stand you don't say I hold on more. And don't start there where I don't say me do one more. Me I don't like Versace, and I don't like designer. Me I don't like Ferrari, and I don't like Bugatti. I go give you my heart, give you body, do anything for you. Sacrifice my life to be your wife, gonna be there for you. But if you break my heart, I go dead to your father. You cannot be my son, you go call me your mother. I'll go fear, every time I go fear. I'll go fear, so me can't start to me.
I will manage to lead it. I will manage to lead it. I say so. You know your basic doing something alright. You telling you got to finish what you're doing first. Then you can talk to somebody else. What is that? Right now you're doing something. You're focused on what you're doing. Somebody else. So you don't do anything wrong.
I don't like Versace, and I don't like designer. Me I don't like Ferrari, and I don't like Bugatti. I'll go fear, every time I go fear. I'll go fear, so me can start to me. Me love you, me mention me love you. Me love you, so me can start to me. Yield 5, it's Africa's very own. I'm a teaser and a pleaser, number one bedroom love teacher. I'm a ruler, call me Caesar. When I spark the generator, I'm already a wife. I know you wanna know where I give you I give you see you out to me, all it's fine. You say you can't let me go, all it's fine. I don't know what should be wrong, all it's fine. Second lesson, before lesson, sit the way me put you in the cushions. Slow motion, no rushing, shush up quiet, follow my instructions. Let me sit down on it, boy, I know you feeling it. You cannot stand it, the way I'm doing it. I kill it, heavenly content, dear baby, all it's fine. See you out to me, all it's fine. You say you cannot let me go, all it's fine. I don't push every all it's fine.
What kind of
Give me go down low. Money day I'm willing to blow all my dough.
what kind of thing do
Here we go. I mean that smooth talk, great time, be control. Work it, okay, see I manage your goal. I like the way it's working.
the woman just went instead of welcoming to somebody to ask question or something? You went right to just using charm.
Like I with electricity and red web.
next time when something happens, you kind of ask questions. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what they're supposed to be doing. They're not supposed to. They're not supposed to just they're not just supposed to go straight to using the charm or somebody. They're supposed to ask a question. Whether we got something to do with the charm or not. Instead of you asking the question, you go straight to they just went straight to using the charm and not even letting you do anything. Oh, you're telling me what kind of thing what you're doing.
Get ready for new playlists personalized for you.
I don't even
You'll easily find music that you love. Play them now in the YouTube Music app.
white people. What kind of thing you'll be doing?
Another one who is younger. When I ask for something to cry. Let's see what I am like that. I'm my baby. Yes, we're gonna go. But you're not coming one. And now, Papa, I'm only what's in my heart. Kind of sad. Slow down. This is the idea. Yeah, pull it for me. Slow down. Because it's the idea. I pull it for me. Slow down. This is the idea. Yeah, pull it for me. Slow down. Because it's the idea. Mercy, mercy, mercy. These poor guys have lots of energy. Just like cooking, but when the morning comes, we not have nothing. A boyfriend who can't buy you food when you're hungry. Is I want to a boy so I can get move fast to some delays. I got myself a sponsor. Let's see what I make a BBM. I'm my BBM. That's where gonna try. But she not coming one. I know baby I'm in shape. So they must say my heart kind of sad. Slow down. This is the idea. Yeah, pull it for me. Slow down. What's the idea? I pull it for me. Slow down. This is the idea. Yeah, pull it for me. Slow down. What's the idea? Mercy, mercy, mercy. These broke guys have lots of energy. Should I leave all this Gucci Prada? Now with young girl, I don't feel hunger. Dilemma, I'm in dilemma. That's why gonna come.
I know
mercy, mercy. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, payment yes. Mas jaja na unu sadi keja ke chi be o na shi o keja unu ka ben
Waiting.
time begins. One day you will know. These are the words of my mother. As I'm getting old, even now I remember. So I'm packing on my tools. I'm going back out home. A young girl like me shouldn't be going down no school. He told me he was a banker. Don't know what this man is a gangster. Go come back to boxer. Oh sorry I'm no bad. If you ever shaka nigga jungle. Every night and day, it's so empty. I really wanna know, I'm sure. Social media, then I have over, then I enjoy the told me he was a banker. Don't know we bank robber. This man is a gangster. Boxer. Sorry I'm no bad, but I'm a good. If you ever shaka nigga jungle. Now you live with me every night and day. My machine is the one me that I didn't wanna know. My machine. I'm sure. One day you will know. These are the words of my mother. I started getting old. Even now I remember. So I'm packing on my clothes. I'm going back home. A young girl like me shouldn't be going down no school. He told me he was a banker. Don't know when I'm cover. This man is a gangster. Who come down my boxer. Now he live with me every night and day. My machine is the one me, but I didn't wanna know. I'm sure.
Anything they tell you, you follow the person. People they will tell you, that's something you know about it. All of them follow, everybody follow it. How even one person to say they pass on your side, say I don't think you pass on your side.
If you wanna give me trouble, oh that's what you like. If you know me handle, please don't waste my time. I don't wanna be your side chick, I wanna be in charge. Need a man to hold me tight throughout the night. Oh, don't hold me, taking hold of me. Oh, don't.
This, we pretend to get up and say, all kind of things you'll be doing. times I've been doing that's really like this. everything right now. Like, giving my body, giving my time. I ain't even able to. Even you put me on job right now, I ain't able to work it. I ain't even able to do it. I ain't able to even go complete the video job. I ain't able to.
Oh, Sabina, tu es clair, ton cœur est noir. Tu veux Makou avec tout le monde? Sabina lele, Magwana tsunami. Magwana Sabina lele, Magwana tsunami. Magwana Sabina lele, Magwana tsunami. Magwana Sabina lele, Magwana tsunami.
Everywhere you see the producing the charn. I will manage to know I will see you using the charn. I will tell you, I say, you stop using the charn. Everybody moving. Everybody moving. I don't know how you do it. Everybody moving. Stupid family that do. They're causing me a lot of
Everyone knows it's important to build credit, whether you want to rent an apartment, buy a car, or get a credit card. Having a good credit score can save you thousands. But how do you actually get started building credit? Many people will say, apply for a credit card, hope that you'll be approved, and then once you finally get the card, be careful not to overspend, or you'll rack up a ton of debt and be making interest payments for years. There has to be a better way to establish credit history. Hello, self-lender. Self-Lender helps you get a credit builder account. It's a small loan that's held in a certificate of deposit account for 12 months. The CD is FDIC insured, it's in your name, and earns you interest. The best part, as you pay the credit builder account, your payment history is reported to all 3 credit bureaus. After 12 months, you've established credit history, and the money in your CD unlocks with interest. Self-Lender. Build credit while you save. Nervous about leaving your parents' phone plan? You could have individual plan phobia.
Plan phobia? Yeah, you're back.
Switch to your own plan at US Cellular and get $400 back. Choose fair.
Hey, galère, si ton soulier, tu brûles comme Puma. Fais tous, béançon. Ocho, c'est qui ça? Ça a tué. Congress. Oh, calama, calama, calama. Oh, calama, calama, calama. Oh, calama, 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 calama. Oh, calama, calama, calama. Oh, calama, calama, calama. Oh, calama, 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 calama. Abi, tu n'as pas tiré. Mais comme tu n'as pas volé, tu n'as pas tué, ça va aller. Débrouiller n'est pas voler. C'est comme ça, voler aussi n'est pas débrouiller. Assou? magadi. Oyo bialele, lele na amanango. Oyo bialele, lele na amanango. Oyo bialele, lele, oh lele oh. Nalingio ama bebela, nalingio ama sheri, nalingio ama bebe, nalingio ama bebela, ama nalingio je t'aime, ama nalingio je t'aime.
Ambiance surchauffée avec les titres.
Nalingio ama bebela, nalingio ama sheri, nalingio ama bijou, nalingio ama bebela, ama nalingio je t'aime. Agobe malelu arisa mo pepe, agobe malelu seja mo pepe, agobe malelu amo pepe, amo o tenu buja o. Debaya, debaya, tenu buja o. Debaya, debaya. Agobe malelu jonde amo pepe, agobe malelu amo pepe, agobe malelu konti amo pepe, konti ya o tenu buja o. Debaya, debaya, tenu buja o. Debaya, debaya. Mama,
à son frère. Un mot qui m'éclate, qui me touche, qui me met. Ce qui m'embête, ça commence à ce qui m'embête. Vous avez aggravé la situation. Maman, tikina, maman, tikima, maman, tikina, tikima.
This statue here of infinite rage. This
Alright, just stop
fucking
there.
meant more to me than Johnny came into anyone.